Welcome in to another edition of the James Boyd Podcast. I, of course, am James Boyd, joined by Colts ESPN reporter Stephen Holder. The day after the schedule releases out, Holder, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm so glad everybody now knows the NFL schedule because I think the world was going to stop turning. So good that we got that squared away. So we are set.
So you've been covering the NFL longer than I have, but even as I was growing up, Stephen, I'm not sure I remember when the schedule became a thing. And
Hmm.
when it became like a social media thing, like this is the Super Bowl for social media teams. I actually give the Colts credit because the Simpson theme this year was pretty good. To give them some grace there. Last year
Right.
was rough and a lot of snafus, but this year was pretty good. But do you remember when it changed and it became like this big event that we all had to kind of look forward to?
It's a great question because it was not always this way. I don't know exactly what year, but it does feel like in the last, I don't know, 10 years ish, this has really become what it is today. I will give the NFL credit. They are masters of marketing.
Yeah.
Like incredible. I don't know who is running marketing at the NFL, but give them a raise. They are good. And they make us care about stuff we shouldn't care about. I just got done writing about how they're playing games on Wednesdays this year.
Yeah.
And they're like, and when you ask them, hey, this is really non-traditional. Do you think maybe you should rethink this? They're like, nope, our ratings are up 10%. And it's a mic drop to say our ratings are up 10%. What else you got?
Yeah.
And I
No.
was like, okay, never mind. I'll shut up now.
Preach, man. I feel like everything that was a tradition as far as the schedule goes growing up for me, because I remember Thursday night games were like once in a blue moon. You had Monday
Hmm.
night, Sunday night, but it just wasn't like it is now, where
Hmm.
it seems like around the holidays now, we should just expect that there's going to be a game on the day of the holiday, the day before the holiday, the day after the holiday. So,
Yeah.
um, for our purposes, the Colts aren't that good to get those kind of games, but they did get some primetime games this year. So I want to dive into the schedule with you and we'll break down kind of some of the matchups and things of that nature. But I'll keep it broad for you. What was your initial thought when you saw it? Because to me, my eyes immediately gravitated toward the beginning of the schedule and thinking, oh boy, Daniel Jones, I hope you're healthy and ready because you will not have a chance to quote unquote ease into the season.
100%. I had the same reaction. I mean, let's go through it, right? Ravens, Chiefs, Texans, Commanders in London, and then come back no bye and play the Steelers with somebody at quarterback. But certainly the Steelers are always formidable, right? So, and that is that is a real daunting first 5 weeks of the season. And all I can tell you is like there will be no like playing your way into shape or figuring out the glitches and getting your offense on track. All that, no, there's not going to be any of that. Okay, if Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson, you're going to have one of the biggest tests for the defense right out of the gate. Okay, that's the first thing. And there's no reason to think like he's going to have two bad seasons in a row. Okay. Because
Right.
when's that ever happened? Right. So I have no doubt that, they're going to get his best shot and simultaneously they're going to be, or I should say Daniel Jones is going to be tested right away as well. So I think I'm not saying that the results of the first few weeks are going to completely dictate what kind of team they're going to be, but it might dictate what kind of record they have. You know what I'm saying? Like it might not be a true reflection of how good or bad the team is. They may get better over the course of the season, but that doesn't matter if you come out and you lay a couple eggs right out of the gate. You're fighting uphill the whole season, and that has such a way of weighing on you. We have seen that time and time again with this team over the years.
Yeah, and I would honestly argue that last year, Stephen, they flipped that narrative. They
Yeah.
started 8-2. They won their first season opener since God knows when. They started 2-0 for the first time since 2009. They were rolling, and it was kind of like this shocking thing. Whereas now, even given all that success that they had, I still don't necessarily know if I believe what I saw through those first 10 games because I think a lot of people would argue the opponents you're facing early on this year are much more formidable than what you faced early on last year. I think last year's season opener was the Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa. That was obviously a beatdown. The Raiders were an early game for them too. When have they won anything recently? But you look at the Chiefs and the Ravens, and I kind of had to laugh at myself when I'm evaluating the matchup. Oh yeah, those are two teams that didn't make the playoffs. Well, one of them has the guy who's won 3 Super Bowls and probably is the best quarterback of my era, and Patrick Mahomes. And
He's
then
LeBron James.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then
Yeah.
the other guy is probably arguably the second best quarterback of this era in Lamar Jackson, being a 2-time league MVP. So
That's like KD, I guess.
exactly. So
Prime KD.
right. So there's no,
We talk basketball all the time, so keep it familiar terms, right?
Exactly. And to kind of piggyback off that point, brother, this is not some, 3 dribble workout. This is the full thing right off the bat with two dudes who can go get it done. And so I agree that the defense will get tested early on. And I'll start there because when I think about the changes that were made, you'll probably have a new starting safety in AJ Halsey. You'll have, by default, new starting linebackers. And I would venture to say right now, CJ Allen out of Georgia, and then Akeem Davis Gaither, who's coming over from Arizona, but has history with Lou Anarumo. But even then, what your defense will be throughout this season probably won't be what it is in week 1. So you're going to have to be on your game. It's a big test for the nerves of your rookies. Okay, welcome to the NFL moments. Oh, yeah, I was pretty good at containing quarterbacks in college. Yes, CJ Allen, you were, but you ain't seen nothing like this dude. Not a healthy Lamar Jackson. That's the other thing. If you saw the Ravens, let's say, I don't know, week 8 or 9, perhaps he's banged up. Is he missing a game? He's missed some games throughout his career. No, he'll be fresh. He'll be 100% healthy, which is the first and only time that they can say it throughout the season because it's week 1. So I'm very curious to see how that goes. And on top of that, not taking the bye after the trip overseas in week 4 with the Commanders, I would probably side with that decision. I think that's probably the smart decision. They have a week 13 bye week now, pushing it back. But that's no slouch. I mean, you're going to face a healthy Jaden Daniels. I almost call him Jaden McDaniels, speaking of the NBA. Wrong Jaden, but Jaden Daniels, and then come right back and face most likely Aaron Rodgers, who is still good enough to get it done. And last year, they routed you in Pittsburgh and forced Daniel Jones to 5 turnovers. So all that to say, I think I'm looking at this first 5 games and telling myself, boy, if you can get 3 wins, great. But in my mind, if you want to make the playoffs, at minimum, you need 2. You can't be trying to climb out of the hole against the rest of your schedule. And I get that it softens up a little bit, but I just don't think this team is really built to climb from behind or built to really play from behind or gain steam. I'm not buying that, Steven, especially given what we've seen with the Colts towards the end of the season. No matter the regime, no matter the quarterback, it seems like they always falter late. So in my mind, you better start fairly strong throughout the season. And they have a chance to do so. I don't make it seem like it's all doom and gloom, but so much will ride on Daniel Jones. And I'll leave this to you. I'm in the camp of, we'll see if he's ready by week 1. They act like it's just going to happen. But how do you feel about that? Because if he is available, he's going to get tested immediately, not just based off his skill level. I mean, he's a good player, I think, when he has structure around him. But the injury is what I'm kind of looking at the Colts and saying, you guys are acting like this was just a sprained thumb. This dude tore his Achilles 5 months ago, and when the season opens, that'll be 9 months. 9 months.
No, it's a lot to count on him being the same guy that he was to open the season last year. Now, that being said, just devil's advocate and giving them their due, they are saying, or at least let me rephrase this. They are signaling to us that he not only will be ready to go come training camp, but that he might not even be on the PUP list at the start of training camp, which I think was my expectation was that he would be, because why would you just rush him? But
and real quick, for those listening, the PUP list means physically unable to perform list. So Steven is saying the Colts, at least right now, are acting like he won't be on that list. Now continue. I'm sorry.
The assumption or the hope right now and the way they're operating is that he will be active on the first day of training camp. So that's a bold thing to be able to say right
aggressive.
now. Right. And so let's just assume that's true. I don't think I assume it, but let's say they're right. Um, I don't think that's even the question though, right? The question isn't can he play? I think we all agree that it's possible to come back, right? And we've seen it done.
Yeah.
The question is, how will you play? How will you perform? And that's just an unknowable question. It's not a reflection of Daniel Jones. It's not a knock on Daniel Jones. It's just pure biology, right? How is he going to perform coming off a very devastating injury? Now, he is, we may find out a little more intel here in a couple of weeks because they're saying that he might actually do some individual work in the OTAs, which we get to watch. So I'll be interested if they are bold enough to put him out there on the field with 12 or 15 reporters watching. More power to it because I am here for it. Let's do it. Um, and I'm not saying that in a mocking way. I'm saying like, wow. I mean that if that's where we're at, then great. But let's see if that happens. But anyway, they're very, very, very bullish on where he's going to be. All I'm saying is there is an alternative possibility here, which is that he's not the guy that he was to open last season. And I would say this to go back to your point about their opening stretch last season. Like I think there's lots of different opinions about it, and the question is, can they recapture that? Because they're going to have to, right? If they want to go somewhere this season, that's how they're going to have to do it, right? They're not going to be the 85 Bears on defense. They're going to have to go out there and they're going to have to score. And I think the question is, I actually think both things are true, right? Number one, I do think they really found something, and what they did was truly historic, right? I mean, on the other hand, yes, they have done that against this lineup to start the season? Probably not, right? And I think that's just obvious. So they took advantage of some bad opponents, but they beat the brakes off of them, right?
That's true. Yeah.
And they beat them. They weren't winning by a touchdown. They were winning by 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. So they were truly a really legitimate powerhouse to start last season. But a lot of that was driven by Daniel Jones. And will that Daniel Jones be back? And that is something neither of us can answer right now.
That's true. Actually, you have to look it up, Steven. I believe the Colts, even after Daniel Jones got hurt and they kind of obviously fell off a cliff the rest of the season, they still finished top 10 in scoring in the league. So they put up
Right.
so many points early on, especially that it kind of balanced out to the point where you're like, man, I forgot how dominant that start was to the season. Now, within the schedule, pivoting a little bit, I always look at one matchup in particular. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Duval County, Jacksonville Jaguars. You want to make the playoffs for the first time since 2020? You want to win the division for the first time since 2014? I think both of those things will have to coincide with you finally getting a win in Duval County on the road against the Jaguars. Let the record show I will never pick them to win in Jacksonville for as long as I live until I see it. I didn't believe in the Duval County curse. It's been dubbed. Steven, I've been on the beat. I think I'm going into my 5th year. Hope to pick up my rookie option at the Athletic, But I have seen some weird things. There was the game where they went down there. I believe it might have been my first year on the beat. 24-0. Matt Ryan. They got skunked. No points at all. Last year, devastating. That's when Daniel Jones tore his Achilles. So, all that in mind, is this the year they shake the curse? Do they get it done on the road? They actually face the Jaguars in week 8. It's a Sunday, November 1st. Does it finally happen?
You think I'm going to put my name on that prediction?
I tried to set you up.
I, you can do whatever you want. There is no way. There is no way I'm putting my name on that prediction. You know why? Because I've made that mistake before. In fact, I've made it multiple times. I thought they were going to do it back in 2018 when Andrew Luck was playing like prime Dan Marino. Okay, I thought they were going to do it in, I don't know, 2021, right? When all they had to do was beat the worst team in the NFL to get in the playoffs. And they couldn't do it then. I mean, I have been wrong so many times. I'm not a superstitious person. I remember like my wife used to like get mad back when I met her. She used to get mad if we split the pole. You ever heard this?
Oh, yeah.
Superstition. I was like, how old are you? But anyway, I used to think it was ridiculous. I'm not a superstitious person. But whatever mojo or voodoo is going on here is real. I believe it. Somebody did something. I don't know what former Colts player or coach, said something terrible about Jacksonville, but they are paying the price for it. No, I don't know. I'm not putting my name on that. Absolutely not. How dare you?
That was a nice attempt. I actually had to look this up. I put it in my story. So I believe you wear the Apple Watch. I do as well. The last time the Colts won a game in Jacksonville, which was in 2014, I believe, the Apple Watch was a prototype. The
That's right.
latest iPhone was the iPhone 5. Now they're on like the iPhone 17. Chris
That's
Ballard
crazy.
was in his first year as the director of player personnel for the Chiefs. He wasn't even in Indianapolis yet. So it's just one of
Barack
those.
Obama was president. I
I
mean, what are we
know
doing here?
it's
That's crazy.
bizarre. I'm thinking
It's
like the
crazy.
world has changed. Literally, the world has changed
Yeah.
since
Yeah.
then. So that's always a funny one I look for. And I made the joke earlier on 107.5 The Fan, the morning show, where it's more so a thing I think in basketball than football. But you get into the dog days of the season, Steven, and you're like, all right, that's a scheduling loss. Like the Pacers
Hmm.
had their third game in 4 nights and they had to travel to 3 different cities.
Right.
This is a scheduling loss. Even though you play once a week in the NFL, whatever day that Jacksonville game is on, it's a scheduling loss. So we'll see if they can shake that curse. I'm serious though when I say if you want to make the playoffs, if you want to turn the tide, you want to win the division, you got to start doing stuff you just haven't done, which is, hey, breaking news from James Boyd. Here's this genius saying the obvious, but hey, you got to get it done at some point against a team that I believe, even throughout this weird streak, which makes it so weird, is that they haven't even been this good. They're better
Mhm.
now. Like they've lost to some
But
bad
that wasn't
Jacksonville
always the
teams.
case, right?
Exactly. But this
They have
Jaguars team this
twice.
year is good.
They have twice lost to the Jaguars when I believe they had the worst record in the NFL in Jacksonville.
It makes
So
no sense. That
yeah,
has to be the weirdest losing streak in the league. I would venture to ask somebody else. I should probably ask my friends, media members, if they know of any other weird streak like this, because every year, and I'm going to do it again this year because it's the easiest story to do that week. Let's revisit the Duval County curse and go through all 11 losses, I think it is now. But
remember when Shane Steichen was like, "Well, I don't know anything about that. I wasn't here." And let me tell you, he has now admitted to us, like, "All right, y'all were right."
it's
You remember
crazy.
this conversation we
I
had with him,
know.
right? He was like,
Yes. Yes.
I heard about that when I got here, and now I'm like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah,
So
unfortunately, and I don't say this as a joke. I'm like, when Daniel Jones went down last year, I'm like, of
yeah,
course it's here in Jacksonville.
yeah.
But I know we talked about, how front loaded the schedule is, how tough it can be early, and even a tough road game in all seriousness against the Jaguars, who won the division last year. Steven, when I look at one of the benefits perhaps of this year's schedule than in years past is that the AFC South games are spread out more. I feel like the
Mm.
last couple years they've been really front loaded throughout the season where you're facing, it might be 4 of your first 6 games have been division rivals. Whereas this year, you don't really have, I don't think they have any back to back games against division opponents, and it's more spread out. So, from that perspective, I think that they can perhaps be in a better position down the stretch to kind of know where they're at, what they need to do, and not have so much be weighted on either a cluster of games at the beginning of the season or a cluster of games at the back end of the season.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack, but people don't understand when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
Yeah, along the same lines, another thing that I'm noticing looking at this is like some of their NFC matchups are a little more toward the first half of the season. You look at the Commanders, I think the Vikings, Cowboys around midseason. Those I'm not saying you can just lose those games, but like when it comes to things like tiebreakers and things of that nature, they don't hurt you that much. right? So those losses, if you do lose those games, you can live with them to a degree, right? If you handle your business elsewhere, which is
Right.
a whole other question. But I think that is interesting how the division games are set up. I mean, I remember, was it last year even, I believe, where, I mean, we got to midseason. I think hadn't they already played the Titans like twice? And
Yeah, they made quick work of them last year.
yeah, yeah, and the Jaguars, I can't remember, but they definitely had a cluster of early division games, and I think that I mean that's where the tiebreakers come into play. That's where all those little things that separate you at the end. They start with the division games, man, and it just puts so much pressure on you on the back half of the season. To have to go win week 18 against a division foe to maybe get a wild card or win your division. So that is an interesting little oddity. I don't know that it was intentional. I don't think those types of things usually are. I think they're just a function of the league having to schedule hundreds and hundreds of games. So sometimes it just falls that way. But that is an interesting thing, and maybe that works in their favor. We will see.
Yeah, I'm looking at the schedule from 2024, and that year they had 3 of their first 6 were division games, and then at the end of that season, 2 of their last 3 were division games. And then
Right.
last year, it was kind of backloaded where you had after your bye week, you had Houston, Jacksonville, and Houston. So you still had 4 division games left. I think this time around, it's more spread out. Now, one of the questions I had to fill out for The Athletic when I'm looking at certain matchups was, what do you think will be the most potent offense and most troubling defense to face? I'll give you my answers. I actually chose the Ravens for offense. And I can hear you out on the Cowboys, even the Bengals with Joe Burrow, but I just feel like, okay, they got a new offensive coordinator in Declan Doyle coming over from the Bears. They are going to be able to try a bunch of stuff with no film on them. They still have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, who Derrick Henry seems like he'll never get hurt. I mean, Lamar's been dinged up. Derrick Henry's like a Ford F-150, and he just keeps chugging along. I think that could cause you some real problems early on in the season, and it might get ugly if you let those two kind of run wild and dictate basically how your defense works. And again, CJ Allen, middle linebacker out of Georgia, if he's going to be your green dot guy, what a game to get tested on that end. I mean, boy, they're going to give you some looks and some wrinkles and things like that really stress you as a defense. And then the best defense they'll face is Houston. I mean,
Yeah.
and I guess in a roundabout way, I'll ask you, do you think, and you can obviously weigh in with your answers, best offense, best defense, or whatever, but within that, I'm asking you, do you think they can gain some ground on the Texans? Because that's a team that has just had their number the last 2 years. I believe they won the first matchup with Shane Steichen in his first year. Well, that was actually with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. They lost 5 straight against them. They haven't beat them in 2 years. So, best offense, best defense, but also, do you think there is perhaps a window to gain some ground against some of these division opponents? Because if you don't gain ground against Houston, then are you making the playoffs? Are you getting into the dance?
So on the first question, I do lean a little bit to the Ravens on best offense they'll face specifically because it's week 1 with a new offensive staff and presumably a healthy Lamar Jackson. I think
Yep.
that really plays into their hands. It's like go back to the Colts really in Shane Steichen's first season. I think that was his greatest advantage was having this new scheme and this funky quarterback. No one knew what to expect from him. I mean, that's the best Anthony Richardson maybe played, frankly.
That's
So
true.
I think there was some advantage there where no one knew what they were getting. So you now replace that scenario with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, and that is kind of daunting, right? So they have some advantages there. Definitely new scheme, new coaching staff, new scheme with a dynamic quarterback. That is a great place to be. Defensively, obviously, Houston, I agree with that. And I would also say, by the way, just honorable mention here, that the Bengals offense, like if they're going to get more help from that defense, which they should, I mean, they've made some moves to their credit, which we do not often say about the Bengals, but they have made some really impressive offseason moves. And if the Bengals can fix that defense at all, they're going to have Joe Burrow's going to have the ball a lot more. And all I got to say is watch out. And they're getting
Yeah, I
them
believe
late in
they
the
added
season.
Dexter Lawrence, right? Yeah, they traded the
They
number
did.
10 pick, added him. He should definitely ramp up their defensive line.
They've made
And
a
I guess,
couple draft picks as well on
yeah,
defense.
my
So, like,
only reason I didn't pick them, Steven, was I was like, it's late in the season, and I'm not
yeah.
sure if Joe Burrow is going to be there. That was my
Well,
only real hesitation.
I mean, you're waiting for the annual Joe Burrow injury.
Yeah,
I hate to say
unfortunately.
I really think we're way off subject now, but I really think that he could be, he could be the guy. I mean, he could be like 1A to
Yeah,
Mahomes
yeah.
if he were ever consistently healthy. I really believe that. I really, really do. But there's just nothing to base it on until he's completely healthy. But anyway, back to the Houston question. It is really a really ugly thing to have to digest that they have not beat them in 2 years. I mean, that's a real mental block for a division opponent to be able to say that about you. And so I actually think it's a takeoff to a bigger topic. This AFC South is not to be played with right now. I think they're an interesting sort of transformational period in this division where Houston has clearly established itself, and I don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be long term, but they're a team that people have to deal with, and there's no question, right? Jacksonville is trying to be one of those teams. They can't figure out if number one, Trevor Lawrence can't figure out if he's actually good or not, and from week
Yeah.
to week can't decide. So if they can ever get some consistency from him, they'll have something. I think they're well coached. For as much as that opening press
Yeah,
conference
Liam
was
Cohen. I mean, yeah, it was Duval, but
right,
but he made it work. He made Trevor Lawrence
right.
look really good last year.
So I think they're on the right track. And then quietly, I do not expect the Tennessee Titans to be good necessarily, but I expect them to be better. They have they have a much better number one. They have, I think, a phenomenal coaching staff. They did a great job. That coordinators, head coach, all of it. I really like what they're doing there. They have put together a great staff. That's number one. Number two, when you suck every year, you stockpile some draft picks. So they do have some talent that they have been stockpiling there for a while. Again, I don't think they're going to be good, but like to think that you're going to walk into Tennessee every week and just win by 3 touchdowns, which was kind of the case the last few years,
Yeah.
that might not be. That might not be the case. So it is interesting. The Colts, meanwhile, having not won a division in so long, here they are, after all these years, wasting all these opportunities in this wretched division, and now come full circle, and now they're in a division where you're fighting for your life. And that's the reality now. And it really goes to show you, like, there's no time like the present in the NFL. There was no time like the present. And the Colts they had a division that was imminently winnable year after year, and they just couldn't close the deal. And now you're going to have to go take it. It is going to be a tough division. I think much tougher than maybe we're used to.
Absolutely. I think of the Titans. They did draft Carnell Tate out of Ohio State at number 4, the wide receiver. They added Wan'Dale Robinson in free agency, another receiver that had a career high in receiving yards last year, won over 1,000 yards for the first time in his career. So all that to say, I mean, let's keep it real, Steven. When we went to those Titans games, whether it was here or in Tennessee, we would look out on the field and be like, who is he throwing the ball to? Does he
No,
have
they
anybody
were
out
laughers. They were
there? Yeah.
laughers. Right.
And I mean, Calvin Ridley looked like a shell of himself last year after getting the big money a couple years ago. They've definitely made a concerted effort to give him some help. And I think Cam Ward showed some flashes last year. We'll see what he can do in year 2. And Robert Saleh is one of the more respected coaches in the NFL, despite having a losing record with the Jets and all of that. Like, he's still, at least defensively, one of the better defensive minds. So they revamped their coaching staff a lot over there. And again, I look at it like this. How do you gain ground and make sure you don't lose ground? Because if you lose to the Titans this year, I'm thinking to myself, boy, you can't afford that kind of loss. But also, you can't afford to keep losing to other teams that have had your number. Like, you can't. And what's weird about the Texans is they've had some close matchups. It's just that they can never really make that final play or get over the hump. I mean, even last year, Riley Leonard, I thought, did fairly well in the season finale. And that game was basically for nothing. But they still couldn't beat them, even, when the backups got put in and stuff like that. Right. So I'm very curious to see how it all unfolds. And ultimately, to put a button on this conversation and this podcast, it all boils down, besides the on-field performance of Daniel Jones and the growth of the rookies and players that you've added and even players that you've gotten rid of. Like, we haven't even talked about Josh Downs and Alec Pierce, like how their roles will increase given the circumstances and the changes within the team. But overall, final year of Ballard's contract, he's in year 10. And Shane Steichen quietly is entering year 4 with a basically 500 record. I think he's 7-22, if I'm not mistaken, during his tenure against the Jaguars and the Houston Texans combined. That's not great. So, again, how do you figure out how to get over the hump and change something? And if you don't, could that mean that we see changes? And so that's where I'm at as far as this team goes. I know we talked a lot about Ballard. He's on the hot seat. But how many coaches keep their jobs as well if they miss the playoffs their first 4 years with the franchise after drafting a quarterback? And I get it, Anthony didn't work out, but then you added Daniel Jones and you've changed, coordinators, you've changed players. At some point, if you don't deliver, they'll think about changing you. So I'm very curious to see how it all unfolds.
Look, the reality here is, if it's me, and it's not because I don't own a football team, but the reality is, like, if they have a subpar season and you decide to part ways with Chris Ballard, I do not see what the logic is of keeping Shane Steichen. And that is not to say that Shane Steichen is not a talented football coach. I believe that he is, which is maybe somewhat an unpopular position around here. But that's not the point. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You can't restart things with a new leader and a coach going into year 5 who's done nothing. Like, that's just not gonna. No one's gonna embrace that situation. Who wants to be in that predicament, right? When you go out and you start hiring a new general manager, all of that, right? So I think you would wipe the slate clean and they would start over, and that makes this season such a pivotal season. As much as the public or many fans want a reboot, I understand that. The truth is, you don't really want that. Okay? You don't really want that. What you really want is for them to figure it out. I'm not saying they're going to. Okay? I am not telling you that's going to happen. But if you're a fan of the Colts, that's what you should really be rooting for, because the alternative sucks. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a process. So how do they avoid that? I really think we're going to find out this year how good Shane Steichen is as an offensive strategist, because his whole issue prior to last year was quarterback stability. So he got some quarterback stability for like 5 minutes and they were great. So if he can achieve that, and if Daniel Jones can stay upright, and who the hell knows, right? But if Daniel Jones can stay upright and figure it out, we might find out, like, how good is Shane Steichen. I think that's the whole ball of wax. And then I would say one side note is Lou Anarumo, get it together.
Yeah.
Show me, don't tell me. Show me, right? I mean, you got an all-star secondary, and you may not have the pass rush. I get that, but, like, figure it out. Okay, figure it out, and that's where that's what's going to decide this season. How good is Shane Steichen as an offensive strategist, and can Lou Anarumo figure it out on defense? That's the whole ball of wax for me.
I agree, man. And just to clarify one thing for myself, because I know people are probably listening like that's the wrong math. I believe the Colts are 7-22 against winning teams during the Shane Steichen era, not 7-22 against 2 division teams. That would be a way too many division games over that span of time. I believe they're 3-9 actually against the Jaguars and Houston Texans during that 3-year span. So again, I agree with you on all those fronts. And now the good thing about it is, as we get closer to the season, it's put up or shut up. We can talk about this till we're blue in the face. We can, give you the scenarios. If this happened, if this doesn't happen. I think the schedule kind of gives us a roadmap to what could unfold, but ultimately it's up to the players to deliver. And so I'm excited for it in a way. And again, shout out to the Colts for not making our lives a little bit harder this offseason with having to make calls to Microsoft to see if they got clearance for certain things.
Oh my God.
They did the right thing this year. And the Simpson thing was hilarious. Just real quick. Did you see some of the Easter eggs in there? I had to laugh at them making fun of themselves. And I was like, you know what? Respect.
Yeah, I liked it. It was creative. And I think, like, the Simpsons are really relatable. Everybody's watched The Simpsons, right? So, and this was not the time to like go making fun of other people. There's probably a little bit of that, but everybody does that. But like
Right.
that can't be your calling card in your video when you haven't had a lot of success and your fans are wound
Yeah.
tight right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, when's the last time you talked to a fan who was like super optimistic?
Oh
I
man.
heard it, right? It's awful, man. So like right now, no one wants to hear it, right? So I thought the right tone and the right approach, and yeah, I mean that's exactly how you do it, and no one has to like pay for it with their job.
Okay.
It
Well, now I'm
really
gonna put
was.
you on the spot because I had to do it to myself. What will the Colts record be in
Oh man,
2026?
oh, I hate you.
Your boy has them at 8-9.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I don't necessarily believe in Daniel Jones staying healthy enough to really elevate this team. I have some questions about durability, what he'll look like coming off the Achilles. It seems like that second year is when everyone gets healthier from the Achilles tear, not the first one. So I could be wrong, but I'm also like every year when I want to believe in the Colts, they break my heart. So that's where I'm at with it, man. 8-9.
So I've thought about this, and I'm leaning to. I'm kind of in the same ballpark as you. I'm leaning toward 9 and 8. I mean, it's a coin flip, right? But the reason I say that, all right, I'm copping out and taking the over 500 rather than under, but they're the same thing. Let's be honest, right? That makes you a mediocre football team. Now, it doesn't mean I don't think there's a path to them being good. I do actually. I actually like a lot of things they have going on, but like you kind of alluded to, I think there are some things you're counting on that you just can't forecast, right? You can't
Yeah.
forecast the performance of the quarterback off the injury. You have some pieces on defense that you have to really rely on, and that is a complete prediction, right? You're just forecasting that. So for them to win 11 or 12 games, they have to be right about all of it. And that just doesn't happen in the NFL. That's the problem. That's just not realistic. So I think anytime you have a team with weaknesses, those weaknesses do come into play. They just do, right? At some point. So I think you have to really root for them to overcome all of the questions for them to be an elite team this year, and that's just not plausible more often than not in the NFL.
Well, that's all we got for this edition of the James Boyd podcast. I appreciate Stephen Holder for stopping by. Yeah, I'm not feeling optimistic. No one in Indiana does. After the NBA draft lottery, are you kidding me? No one thinks that the good luck is going to find its way to Indianapolis to 317. So we'll see what unfolds next. The Colts will be back at spring practice next week. We'll be out there, hopefully, hearing from Anthony Richardson and others as they get underway with more team activity. So until next time, my friends, you all stay safe and thanks for listening.